Hi, I'm Jim, and this is Lamont. We're from Blackbird Training Group. We're here to do a review of the Superior Fencing Training Hoodie. My perspective, I'm one of the instructors here at Blackbird, and I teach the HEMA class. So my viewpoint is going to be talking about how it works with our HEMA class.
And I'll be, I'm mostly a collie guy. I do a little bit of HEMA on the side too, but I'm going to be approaching this mostly from the collie perspective.
So one of the reasons why we got these hoodies and have started recommending it to all of our students is it's a really cool thing for them to put on for low to medium grade sparring and just general use inside the club, both for the FMA, the Filipino martial arts stuff, and for the HEMA. I like it because they are 350 Newton rated hoodies. They have built-in padding on the elbows and shoulders, and you throw it on, it has a built-in gorget with additional plastic and foam padding there. You're immediately protected to a relatively high level, and so even if you're just doing drill, you throw a jacket on, a helmet, and some gloves, and you're really pretty good to go for pretty much any level of drill, up to light or medium sparring. You might want more protection or whatnot from there, but just me personally, for day-to-day just class use, I think they're an amazing thing to just throw on if you're going to be a little bit more than just doing things in the air.
Yeah, for me again, as a in the intro to stick fighting, right? If we're using rattan as we do in the collie class as your base level of training tool, that, you know, if you're going to either take a step, even in padded sparring, some people are uncomfortable, even just, okay, this is padded sparring, I want to wear something more. This gives them a feeling of protection. So it's the protection that is offered. They have shoulder pads here, and forearm, elbow, and a little bit down the forearm down here. You leave space for your glove to come on and a cuff on your glove, but you're going to protect the elbow here. I'm not wearing an elbow here. For me, if I'm going to be wearing this, I'm wearing it because we're doing something heavy, polymer or something like that, and I'm going to actually put on real protective gear. If it's just rattan, I'm fine with getting hit with that. So, I also leave the shoulder pads in for when I'm doing polymer, and this will play kind of impact, and I don't feel that, right? That's on the bony point of the shoulder. I don't want to get hit there with rattan stick if I'm just wearing my t-shirt. So, you know, that's a spot we work to avoid, but this makes it just a little bit safer. There's no true collarbone protection on this one, but it does come sort of halfway up to the edge of the collarbone here. You aren't actually covering the collarbone here. The other thing is for knife, right? The gorget. It doesn't happen often, but something slips in under the fencing masks and get caught. And a lot of collie guys don't run around with gorgets on, right? That's a vulnerability that if your standard is a fencing mask and gloves, well, most people aren't wearing gorgets out there, and so nice thing to have.
Absolutely. In general, in class with say you're going to do practicing with some steel weapons for a given drill, just a little incidental knock against a bony prominence or something like that. If your intention is just to be doing some very careful drilling to figure out a technique, you might not have a gambeson, or you might be going slow enough where you might feel you might not need it. One of the things I like about this is the cost is so relatively low. It's one of the first things your students can buy. So let's talk about cost for a second. We utilize shortshop.ca out of Canada, and their price is $73 for the jacket. We're working with Jay through Sword Shop, and he has them custom embroider these for us, and that price jumps up all the way to $87. Like less than $20 to get custom embroidery on a jacket, and the embroidery looks amazing. So that's really great. So for less than $100, your student doesn't have to save their pennies for a long time to get a $300 or $400 gambeson and then be very, very protected, though we 100% would recommend that if they want to be competing and doing that kind of stuff. But just to get them going, and a light to medium level of sparring in inter-club sparring, just a perfect solution for very new beginners, and not not breaking the bank. You know, if you think about, we're not a huge club, and so our loaner gear is relatively limited to masks and gloves right now as it is. If we had to start including gambeson for everybody so they could be safe while they're practicing, that's going to be a pretty significant cost prohibitive thing. But with these being less than $100, you know, your students already have helmets and gloves that they have to get. The swords, you know, those are very expensive. So these end up being a very economical way for your students to be able to have a piece of training kit that is very, very safe. And like Lamont said, the gorget is super underrated as something that it's almost an afterthought for some people, I think, but it is, that it's actually built into here is very, very cool feature.
So one thing to talk about is these pads. These kind of actually represent a couple different generations of these training hoodies. First bought them 3 years ago, right? First selling come on the market, picked them up a couple years ago. Found them useful. Did a big order last year, last October, and then we got a couple more in the last couple of months. And we've actually seen a little bit of a, and these are the inserted padding. So there's pockets in here and on the shoulder that these slip into. Yeah, we can showcase that.
Just a little piece of Velcro, and it slips right in. And then they're pretty well formed, so it doesn't feel super bulky when you're not wearing it like Lamont is. And I never really noticed. So I have the older generation of padding. The jackets from one generation to the next, as far as we can tell, are not changed. But the padding is absolutely changed. These are, I don't know, like an EVA foam or something, like a work mat material kind of thing. But these are like carefully formed. You can tell there's like a thinner part on the outside and a little bit thicker part. In the thicker middle part, it's about the same thickness, it seems, as this. But on it, tapering on the outside of that, it is a lot more flexible. You can tell just by bending it, it creases where it gets thick. So
that's making it more comfortable to wear if you're going to be in this, all the time kind of thing.
Absolutely.
This actually might be elbow one, but where forms up and comes up to here. And so that's a nice improvement. Again, jacket doesn't seem to have changed, but they're showing improvements in terms of their padding technology here. This is a specifically designed element for shoulders and elbows.
Yeah.
So
the other thing that seems to have changed is the actual hoods themselves. So on the new hoodies, they seem to have changed to a 4-layer. We cut this up in a cutting testing thing. We'll talk about that in a second. So the newer one seems to have 4 layers. And as we're feeling the material just in our hands with the older style hood, which are obviously removable. There's a zipper that runs all along the back, and then there's like a little piece that folds under here that you can't quite see that has the zipper on there. Anyway, these are 4 layers, and those seem to be 2 layers. And they are, as we discovered at a recent little expo thing that we did, they're remarkably slash and stab resistant, and if not, they're not stab proof, but they're darn close to stab resistant, that's for sure. In fact, of all the cutting that we did, there was only a couple times with very sharp knives specifically, but we tried screwdrivers and other things, and just about everything had a hard time getting through this.
So yeah, this is the one that came off of my hoodie. I'm only wearing this in here. I'm not wearing this around town, so I didn't have a use for the hoodie. So I took it off, and we'll use this for a little test here in a minute. But again, same material, seems 2 or 3 ply, something like that. There might be something slightly thicker going down the middle, but if it is, it's not by much, just when they're shaping that. Before we go into testing, is there anything else we want to cover?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so anyway, and that ability to remove these is really nice. If I start off heavy, if you're a new student, you start off heavy, you get accustomed to the impact. I'm moving my arms more, and the first layer is I take this out, right? And now there's still a little bit of like, and it might be just mental. Like mentally, I got one extra layer, and you know that sticky key isn't as big when you get hit, and so I still have some protective gear over me. And then if I'm not comfortable with going down to a t-shirt, you know, just and that kind of thing. So again, it just provides that one layer, and they can customize that and eliminate that as needs. They're not nearly as bulky as, you know, a full-on forearm guard, like you know. So yeah. So anyway, great level of being able to take your levels down easily.
Talk about fit for a second. So as far as fit goes, like per size, I wear an extra large for most stuff, 2X on some things. These are almost exactly what I would want it to fit if I in a fighting hoodie. I want it to be just a tiny bit tight, but not like constricting at all, and it's 100% that. If I could ask for one thing, I want them to be maybe a little bit longer. That would probably be nice, but to be honest, I really haven't really noticed that being a thing for me personally. But otherwise, fit-wise, it works. It fits great.
I think this is a large, and like I'm right at the limit. I'm coming to like a medium or large shirt, depending on, you know, the kind of shirt. And to me, so for me, it's a little bit small. So if you had to choose, I'd bias a little bit up. Like it's not going to hurt you to get the next size up, because it's not. It certainly isn't going to be gigantic on you. So yeah, good point on that. Okay, so puncture resistant. They're rated to 350 Newton. I don't know if Superior Fencing is doing like how they're measuring that, and that's true of most of these HEMA companies. I don't know who's doing their puncture testing. The intention on the puncture resistance is, and we've never seen it as a HEMA club, but if I stab into you and this bends and this shatters, and now I've got a sharp pointing implement free, if you get stabbed with it, it's something to protect you from getting stabbed. And this is a holdover from Olympic fencing, where those swords bend way more than these do. And they're thinner than that, and so I've never seen a break happen. I've heard of it, but I've never seen a break happen. But this is just in case. So when we get into steel sparring that way, so what's the concern, right? Well, so we're gonna do a test on this one. For lack of better, we're gonna, as a stand-in, we're gonna use a fairly small diameter screwdriver and stab it, just because hopefully that represents something sharp and pointy and going rapidly.
And sort of like the worst case, literally.
Yeah.
Like if one of those is going to break, that it breaks that pointy and directed is going to be pretty impressive.
So we're going to use Bob here. Did I put that right? So we're just going to reverse grip knife, stab into this. That did not go through. That did not go through. That did not go through. So, but there's a lot of give on this. So we're going to move to a medium where there's less, there's more resistance, more like a skull might be, or your body here, where and so this is a dog ball, right? Less smushy than this is. You want to zoom in here? Okay. So didn't make it through. Whoop, that did it. Now that did it. No. So that one punctured through. Okay, so we know what through sounds like. None of these. That did it.
Yep.
So we can do it. It takes some work. I'd be curious if we ever got like an Olympic fencing doublet, if we could do this intentionally.
Yeah.
So not perfect, but that took some work to go through it, right? So good test to see what's going on that way. Yeah. So and again, like with anything that had a lot of give, it was okay, but with a much firmer substrate, it didn't work for us.
Yeah. So pros, as far as I'm concerned, probably the greatest, the three greatest pros for this is cost. $73 at a base price for these is crazy price. You can't get, we were talking just before we started filming, you can barely get a nice hoodie for that much. You know, $50 for a nice Nike hoodie is not out of the, you know, and for $20 extra, you get a safety rated hoodie that has armor. Come on, that's a no-brainer. Cost, durability. Durability is pretty amazing. We didn't really show much of the 4-ply thing, but as we were stabbing it and slashing at it at the men's expo that we went to a couple weeks ago, you can see this side is pretty chewed up, and on the other side there was only a couple places where we ended up puncturing through or slashing through. So I mean, if the whole jacket was this thick, it would be probably way overbuilt. But just that the material itself has the potential to be this durable is just super impressive. Simplicity, being able to throw on a jacket and have as much protection as we have is pretty amazing. One of the reasons why my brother really likes this jacket is it's warm, which is also a con, but we'll talk about that here in a second. And then, like Lamont mentioned, for low to medium intensity sparring, it reduces a not insignificant amount of impact. Even if that's psychological, you know, it takes away a bit of the stingy. If anything as an instructor that I can do to get a student to not be afraid and turned off by sparring, I'm gonna double down on 100%. And if somebody goes from, wow, that really hurt, I'm never coming back to spar, to, hey, that kind of hurt, but it wasn't so bad, I'm in. So those are probably the best pros that I think we have. Cons-wise, you want to talk about that?
I mean, as a function, I don't think we had. There's a couple fit, like the Velcro, the Velcro on the neck piece over here. If it's constantly over here, it'll cause some of the fabric to pill. As a training tool, I don't care. Like, you know, as something, like if that's the worst that happens, that's not a terrible thing. It's not a fashion item, right? So I'm not worried about that. Some things I'd like to see. You can see that he stitched on a patch here, got one on the shoulder. I added this one again, same thing. Had to stitch it on. I added a reversible Velcro. So that'd be a cool thing to see. It's just a couple of patches in there where people can, you know, custom. You know, if you have 6 of these black hoodies either lying around your dojo or hanging on a coat rack, it's like, okay, which of the 6 black hoodies is mine? Because they only come in black.
Yeah.
You know, so being able to throw on a patch like, oh, that's mine, would be nice to get. The customization in the back is great. We've worked with Superior Fencing and with our other HEMA jackets, like for full HEMA jacket for customization. And you just basically send them a JPEG of like, this is what you want. So that's easy to do. But it'd be nice to have like a club patch for your shoulder, be able to throw that on there. It just is a kind of a default if you didn't want to invest in this extra money of just be able to throw that on there. But that's a luxury item for sure.
Yeah. I think we've had 2 separate first-gen jackets that have had some zipper issues. Then again, that's out of like 12 jackets, I think. So I mean, you know, take that for what it's worth. They are just kind of the simple plastic zippers. They aren't like heavier brass, which is something I would kind of like to see in a piece of training gear. One of the jackets that we do have a problem with is club. It's one of the 2 jackets that I bought for the club, and I'm going to have those zippers replaced. We'll see how hard that is to do, but I'm going to ask the person that does them to replace it with a heavier like a big brass YKK zipper or something like that. And aside from that, I think that's pretty much it. They're fantastic. I really like them. Oh, back to the con for being warm. If it's anything other than cool out, you know, a good long day of sparring, you take it off as soon as you're done sparring your match. You kind of cool off, and then you gingerly put the soaking wet thing back on, and then you spar your next match. It is what it is. You know, it's going to be plenty warm when it's cold, and it's going to be too hot when it's hot. That's the unfortunate thing about it. But the whole time it's doing its job.
And it is also kind of a wicking fabric. Mm-hmm. Like this is not a cotton gambeson that's going to get full of sweat. It's a synthetic. You hang it up. We're lucky. We're in a pretty arid environment, so our stuff will dry off pretty quick. And I've never had an issue washing it. But like I said, this is a synthetic, so it's not going to sit there and just marinate in that sweat forever. It's going to wick that out and dry out pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I think that's,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So Superior Fencing Hoodie, Sword Shop Canada was the vendor that we got these from.
Yep. Thanks very much for watching.